Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us. Tennessee didn't lose yesterday. It was an open date for the Volunteers, an unexpected one. We'll talk about Vol football. We'll talk about Vol basketball over the next 90 minutes. Deep dive into both sports and the issues that they are facing right now. In fact, we'll start there and get the COVID stuff out of the way because in case you haven't been paying attention, the sports world is kind of upside down this week due to this COVID thing, worse than it has been. Let's get into this show. First segment brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. Many people think of these folks and their first thoughts go to their home. You know, that's what I used them. I used them for their I used them with their 15-yard long driveway dumpsters. You just put the junk in there. It's like a good spring cleaning aid, and they haul it off. But they're great for your business as well. They can get rid of junk from your office, obviously. Old office furniture, old equipment, stuff too big that you don't want to move yourself, don't want to have your employees carry out. They can do it. Even document shredding. Junk Be Gone does it all for your home or your business. Good locally owned, family-owned company. JunkBegone.biz to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists we have today right here. Longtime sports writer in East Tennessee, Bob Hodge. And
Good
longtime
morning.
member of the show. Bob, thanks for being back. Right there, Jimmy Hines from WNML. You can hear him on Sports Talk Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 each day. And next to him, a compatriot from WNML as well, Vince Ferrara, who you can hear on various shows across the WNML spectrum and time slots. Vince, Jimmy, thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks, John. Sir.
All right. As I mentioned, we'll just get this out of the way. So if you're sitting there going, I don't want to hear about COVID, it's going to be one segment just to talk about how much it's going to impact Tennessee moving forward. College football, games being moved, even if you're not involved, the leagues are moving games now, as Tennessee found out, to try and make sure everybody gets in 10 games so everyone makes as much money as possible this year. Basketball, Tennessee actually has a case of COVID on the football team that we're aware of, and there's some quarantining going on there. Basketball, you know that it's already impacted the team. Because of that, they had to put a pause on everything for 2 weeks. You've lost 4 games now for the Tennessee basketball team. Everyone was geared up to see this group. They had 4 really good non-conference games, already nixed. You look around college football, college basketball, there are games being canceled everywhere, teams playing without players. Vanderbilt had to suit up a women's soccer player yesterday as a kicker because they didn't have one. The Denver Broncos won't have a quarterback today because one guy got it and the rest of their quarterbacks didn't wear masks. So they're not going to be playing today with a quarterback. The 49ers aren't going to be able to play at home because that county out there in California has said we can't have contact sports right now. And the NFL is shutting down all team facilities Monday and Tuesday. Not a great time for this COVID thing. To be honest with you, we said back in the spring that this was probably going to be, in terms of football, one of those shotgun years. We went back and looked at World War II, looked at 1918, and what you saw was this team played 9 games, this team played 5 games. We told you to be prepared for that, and that's what you've got. To be honest, they've gotten more out of this season than I thought they would, but I'm starting to have my fears that they're going to be able to finish. Are you worried about college football and college basketball more now than you were, say, a month or 2 ago?
Yes. I mean, I don't think you can deny that things have changed in a bad way.
Oh, you can deny it.
And
Plenty of them out there.
And your question is, will sports finish or will COVID win out? I'm going to say it's going to be a combination of both. They're going to try to do everything they can. I mean, the players want to play, the coaches want to coach. Set aside the money thing. Then you get to the leagues and the schools, that's where the money thing comes in. So I think you've got groups of people both want to get as much out of it as they can. And like you said, it may end on a jagged end. I mean, yeah. Tennessee may not finish all of its games. Somebody else may finish all their games. So I think it'll be a combination of both. But the impact has already been pretty big, and I think it's going to get bigger.
Gentlemen?
I had predicted before the year that the SEC would start its season but not finish it because I thought we'd have too many outbreaks, and I'm going to stick to that. And I think it'll mean that some teams don't get all their games in. I have concerns about them getting an SEC championship game. I have concerns about a college football playoff. I mean, Florida State 2 weeks in a row, the day of the game, cancel their games because they had one person that had the test and there was contact tracing. Now, in Tennessee's situation, John, you mentioned this, if they had contact tracing, a lot of those guys can't play against Florida because it's a 14-day quarantine. So you're going to have to sit some of those out. Kentucky just sat out 15 more players in their most recent game. That's 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to say that some of these sports, college football also, will not finish out the season, will not have some of the championship games they had hoped for in a variety of sports.
Well, I think you have to have more concern, right? Because we've seen how it's impacted all different sports. However, I do think they'll get to the finish line, but it's going to be, to use a term John mentioned, jagged. And I think you will see that big discrepancy in games that are played. It depends a lot on how these teams, the coaches, the players, how much they take this seriously after, obviously, human nature for a lot of people, letting your guard down a little bit. And they had to tighten the screws. Letting quarterbacks be in a room without their masks on, I mean, to me, that's on the head coach and making sure that this is important. And that's got to filter down to all levels and all sports, that they have got to tighten the screws. It's not going to totally prevent things from you getting COVID, but if they do that and they take it even more seriously, I do think we can get to the finish line, even if it's not like we normally would have a season.
A little later in the show, Mark Pankratz is going to join us, former Vol basketball assistant coach, former D1 basketball player, and we're going to talk about the possibility of why the NCAA didn't delay basketball. Could they still delay basketball until January, and would that help? So we're going to talk a little bit more about basketball a little later in the show. The SEC this week, there were a lot of Vol fans that were upset that Tennessee and Vanderbilt got postponed so Vanderbilt and Missouri could play, but the reality is that's actually good for Tennessee in the sense that they're trying to make sure all these TV games that the SEC has are played, because that's money. They've already lost 2 CBS games that they're going to have to refund CBS that money. That's money out of your pocket. So they're trying to put everybody in there to where each team gets its 10 games. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. And the teams that are going to get the emphasis on that front, if you can't get everybody their 10, are going to be Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M. And that will lead to shouts of, well, they're protecting their own. Yes, because they want 2 teams in the playoffs, because that's what? Money. So the outrage over the SEC moving schedules, Jimmy, I don't know what your phone calls were like this week. It was Thanksgiving week, so it was kind of a bizarre one. But the people I talked to and the social media, which I always enjoy reading, there were a lot of upset people, and I thought, they're just trying to make money. This isn't anti-UT. What was your take on the reaction to all this?
It was anti-Tennessee getting a win. I think that's what the fans are looking at. This is a great chance to get a win against Vanderbilt, and you're taking that away, and now we've got to live with this until they go to Florida and get beat again. So I think that's a lot of where that frustration was coming from. But I get it, and I understand it, and that's just the way. Look, I remember talking early in the week that the SEC is going to restructure some of the schedule going forward, and they have. They did it the other day by moving LSU and Alabama and so forth. So that's what you're looking at, and that's what you're going to continue to look at. This thing will be a moving target, I think, until December the 19th.
They're trying to get their division games in first,
right.
The higher priority, because if you put those cross-division games at the end and it gets chopped, you don't lose an important division game.
Which goes back to something we were saying on this show in the summer when we were doctoring up all these fake schedules, and you could do it like this, you could do it like that. And the thing that I kept pushing here was put your division games first.
Right.
Get those out of the way, and that way, if you have to nuke games later, you can blow up the non-divisional games to put the division games in their place and get that, and that way you can at least have a championship game, which brings in money. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, Bob. Tennessee will play Florida next week. That's been confirmed. But in terms of, is it Texas A&M the week after or Vanderbilt after that? SEC could come back that Monday and say, we're shuffling you here, you're here. It wouldn't surprise me if Tennessee wound up playing somebody that isn't even on their schedule right now. If they figure out, okay, these 2 can't play due to timing, but we can make these 2 play. So congratulations, you now get Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss.
Yeah, or you get Mississippi State, or you get whatever. And that wouldn't surprise me at all either. I think that Tennessee, the odds of not playing Texas A&M, I think, are pretty small, because Texas A&M's right there on the cusp of getting into the playoffs. So I think they're going to do everything like you said. You know, if I'm Tennessee, I was happy I didn't play Vanderbilt this week. I mean, you've got a lot of questions with your football team. You've got a lot of problems. I don't like, as a fan, all of this open date stuff. Okay, we're not playing again.
Yeah.
It's like I told you earlier, I paid less attention to football yesterday because I wasn't warming up for Tennessee and Vanderbilt last night. And so I think that's had a big impact. But I also just believe that if I'm Tennessee and I'm in the situation I'm in, I'll take every day of practice I can get my hands on. You know, and yeah, it's disappointing you don't have a game. I think it's doubly disappointing that instead of Vandy, you've got Florida. But, you know, going back to the question, is it for money? Yeah, it's for money. But they need the money right now. This stuff isn't free. And I don't think there are people sitting around stroking big checks like you read. Somebody will stroke a check. Yeah.
Oh, if you're reading Clay Travis, there are people always.
Nah.
Okay.
He's a check stroker.
Yeah, he is. All right. When we come back, and by the way, I just want to mention as we end this segment, we now have 9 people either in front of or behind the cameras at one time or another associated with this show who either have COVID right now, are hospitalized with COVID right now, or have had COVID. Bob, for example, called in when he was dealing with it, wound up in the hospital with it, narrowly avoided ICU with it. It's real. I know that makes some of you mad that I say that, but just be careful. That's all I'm saying. We want you to keep watching. We want our sponsors to stay healthy. Just be careful.
Can
That's all
I add one
ask.
thing right quick? I had never spent a day in the hospital in my life except to go to the emergency room. Not a single minute was I ever admitted to a hospital. I had things set. I had things sewed up. That was it.
And then
So, and suddenly I'm in the hospital for 3.5 days.
well, when you called in and talked about it, I actually had an email that said you're part of the liberal hoax. So I thought, congratulations,
know
it's the
me.
first time in your life. All right, when we come back, could Tennessee lose 9 games this year? In a bowl game? Technically, yes. And before you say, we'll explain it. Come on back, we'll show you.